All right, so this may be the second chair that I've broken since I've been here in Romania. If you've probably watched some of my videos, you're like, why is one chair having one arm than the other? It's because I break these chairs. Maybe I'm too fucking strong or something. I don't know. But either way, big thing you have to understand with life. This is going to be interesting. Big thing you have to understand with life is that you will always be tested based on the signal that you broadcast to other people, and specifically with women. And I like to always talk about it from the paradigm of women, not just because it's relevant, but also because this is what y'all like to watch. Like, you guys care about women, but you act like you don't. Now, you see, whenever you're a man and you get to a point where you make some big transformations within yourself, you change your self-image, you start to seek approval less from other people, and you start to get more self-approval. And you start to actually develop a sense of self to where you're sufficient with who you are, you will be directly tested. That signal that you broadcast. And what is the signal? It's essentially the perception that you broadcast to the world, or the perception that you broadcast to women specifically. It will be tested to see how strong that signal is. Is that signal staticky, which means it's not necessarily who you are, but it's just a projection that you have that has a weak internal frame. You don't necessarily sit in that approval of self. You actually want approval from other people, but you're acting like you don't. In other words, you put on a mask. So women will test that signal consistently. So for example, you're somebody where you seek approval in yourself, where I like how I look. I like the outfits that I wear. I don't need anybody else to tell me that. You can tell yourself that, but until it sits home inside of you, you'll continuously be tested by life, and specifically by women, because those are the clearest mirrors of your signal in life, right? Life as a whole, there are different mirrors within life that will be able to reflect the signal it is that you broadcast. And that signal can be reflected as weak or strong. So that you sit, and maybe this is your wife, maybe this is your girlfriend, maybe this is just a woman that you casually date, and she tests you by saying, oh, I like men who have hair. For example, I have very limited amounts of hair. One, because I like having a low cut, and this is my favorite thing. And I may sit in a conversation and the woman may be like, well, I like when you have hair. That's a test of your signal to see if you get self-conscious about it, to where now you start to close up. And now you start to stutter, and now you start to act insecure, or now you start to overly defend the fact that you have short hair, and you give crazy explanations for why you do that, which then broadcasts insecurity, which then weakens the signal that you have to offer, which then turns the woman off, because now the woman's like, well, he's doing this for my approval. And now that I've said something that I've liked, and he's basically rejected his own self-confidence, he's rejected his own self to be able to fit in the self that I want him to be, he may not be a genuine person, right? He may not be a man, literally and figuratively, right? Because women are the ones that like to change the way that they perceive themselves based on how others perceive them, right? Which is why they'll get eyeliner, they'll get lashes, they'll get all kinds of modifications. A lot of men don't do this as much. Why? Because we don't necessarily need that approval, even though society has trained us to start to desire the approval of others. Why? Because of social media, because of all these different things. But when you get that test, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are not who you say you are, or that you haven't fully worked on yourself. It's a test to see if the work that you've put on yourself has resonated deep enough into your psyche to where it is permanent. This is why a lot of men, they don't like to go out and actually talk to women. They try to avoid women at all costs because they're afraid of that test of signal. I'm not saying you have to be with these women. I'm not saying you have to do anything, but just talking to women in general, they find it scary, because the minute that they talk to the woman, it's an instant test of the signals that they've tried to work behind closed doors to actually broadcast. And so now that they're broadcasting this signal, they don't want to hear the feedback of whether the signal's choppy, whether the signal is actually static. It's actually noise. It's not actual signal, because you have to, again, a signal is only worth what it is based on how it penetrates through the noise around it, right? So as you start to broadcast these different signals, you'll start to get a bunch of tests. I gave you one example. It could also be outfits that you wear. Maybe you feel secure in the outfits that you wear and you tell yourself, I don't need social approval based on the outfits that I wear. I wear what I want to wear. I don't follow trends. I don't follow this. Now a woman comes along and she tests you and she says, oh, I like when men wear this. I wish you would have worn this, or I wish you would have worn that. Now, if you start to wear what it is that she wants to wear outside of what you truly want to wear, your signal is weak. It was a false signal. And now you become less attractive to yourself and also to other people. And so you have to understand that it's important that every single signal that you broadcast needs to be tested to make sure that that is a signal that is correct. You want to have a signal that you are abundant, that you are able to make money, that you're able to do this. Well, not only women, but life will test you to the point where it will start to create different ceilings or different thresholds where when you hit those thresholds, you'll start to bounce back down. Maybe you'll lose money in a way that you never thought you would lose. And now you get to a point where you fall into scarcity mode, which tested that signal, and that signal was weak. So you weren't ready to get to the next level, right? The same with the woman. Whenever you get tested based on the signals that you present, maybe you present the signal of, I don't care whether I have sex or not. I don't care wherever this outcome goes. Now you detach yourself from outcomes. And you practice this law of detachment. And when you go to a woman and she just softly rejects you, not because she doesn't want you, but because it's a test, you start to close off and you start to get all moody and you start to act weird and you start to shift around and you start to get impatient. You start to get uncomfortable. That is a direct reflection that the signal that you've broadcasted, that you have this detachment towards the outcome, is weak. And you have to get to a point where you not even survive, but you pass these tests with flying colors, because that is who you are. Whoever you say that you are will be tested by life, will be tested by women, and also will be tested by men. And the more that you can get around certain women and the more that you can broadcast this signal, and the signal even gets stronger every time you get tested, that's when you know you've made radical, deep transformations within yourself. That's all it is. I always tell people, life, women, all of these things are mirrors. They are feedback loops based on what you are projecting as a signal to the world. And a lot of men cannot take the fact that their signal is weak, that they've only built it on weak foundations, on tactics, on specific role playing, specific scripts that they've memorized. All of these things are weak signals that don't stand the tests. And the goal is to have complete self-mastery, to have complete congruency internally, to where all of your values, all of the things that you truly believe in yourself, you stand on, even when they are tested by somebody else. And most importantly, tested by life. Because life will test you the same way that a woman tests you. You want to talk about shit testing? That's what it is, to test the shit that you have, that you've tried to remove. That's all it is. And the more that you fall into these tests, the more that you start to see, like, man, I do still have shit inside of me. I do still have this need for approval. I do still have this insecurity. I do still have all of these different, I do still have this lack of discipline. You want to know how a woman tests your discipline? When you have a specific thing that you were supposed to do in the morning, you're supposed to wake up early in the morning to go do that thing, whether it be some task that you have to complete or whether it's a new routine that you're trying to put together. She will test you by saying, hey, stay in bed with me for an hour longer, right? That is a test, a shit test, to see if the signal that you're broadcasting, which is the signal of discipline, is actually strong enough to hold. And the way that you make sure that that signal is strong enough, or the way that you observe that that signal is strong enough, is when you do the thing that you say you were going to do, regardless of what temptations come along. That's all it is. That's all these tests are for, is to validate whether your signal is strong or not. And that's why I tell men, strengthen the signal. Focus on strengthening the signal by working on the inner circuitries that broadcast that signal to begin with. Because all men are broadcasting signals, whether they believe it or not. Signals of insecurity, signals of strength, signals of power, signals of weakness. All the spectrum of signals are being promoted. And the strongest signals, which make you undeniable in rooms, which make people gravitate towards you, are the positive signals, are the high frequency signals. strength, honor, self-assurance. All of those things are positive signals. Abundance when it comes to money, knowing that you can make money at any point in time and nothing financially can rock you. That is a strong signal. A signal of scarcity is a weak signal that people can start to pick up on subconsciously and completely distance themselves from you because you are not broadcasting a powerful, strong signal. You are broadcasting a weak signal that cannot be picked up, that cannot differentiate you from the wave of noise that exists of scarcity. If you want to signal as somebody who is abundant or have a strong signal in the noise of scarcity, you signal abundance. And that will give you everything that you want in terms of outcome, in terms of magnetism, in terms of the actual outcome of more money, in terms of all of those outcomes. But you will be tested. You will absolutely be tested. And you'll be tested by women the most, because they are the purveyors of signal. They will tell you how your signal truly broadcasts. And the weakest men, the men who struggle with women the most, broadcast weak signals day in and day out. And the men who cosplay and act like they're putting out true, strong signals are the ones that get tested to make sure that those signals are correct. Because biologically, evolutionarily, that is what women do to filter. That is their filtering mechanism, is through testing signals that are constantly being thrown at them. If it's a weak signal, they can easily throw it away. If it's a strong signal, they have to filter it. They have to test it to make sure that that signal is strong. You ever have a phone, you take the phone somewhere and it has a weak signal? That's testing to see if your provider is good in that area. If your provider said that it was a strong provider, let's say it was AT&T, let's say it was T-Mobile, let's say it was Verizon, and they said that they had a strong signal that they could work worldwide, and you test it by going somewhere subconsciously, and you see, do I have signal? And when you don't have signal, you get disappointed, or they lied to me. And now you switch carriers. That's exactly what women do, by the way. And it's exactly what life does. When you try to signal abundance, to have more money, to be able to claim more money, and all of a sudden you get tested to where you lose a certain fraction of your bank account, or you lose all of your money overall, that is life testing you to see, do you truly have abundance even when things are going down? And when you fail that test, life discards you and goes and finds somebody else who's broadcasting abundance. So everything works in tandem, fellas, by the way. I hope you learned something from this about signals, because this is truly like my philosophy that, as you guys know, I've spent a year and a half trying to come up with my philosophy in life, bro. I mean, a lot of it's multidimensionality, which literally means that you can broadcast strong signals across all 5 dimensions: physical signal, mental signal, financial signal, social signal, spiritual signal. You have to have all 5. Spiritual signal will allow for God or whoever, the universe, however you want to put in infinite intelligence or creator, however you want to call it, to connect with you based on your spiritual signal. Your social signal, which will be a broadcast for people to connect with you on a social level, for you to have stronger networks, for you to have elite guys who are in your phone that you can talk to at any point in time that can help you through anything, right? You can have a certain lifestyle that people gravitate towards. Your financial signal, which is essentially, do you have a strong sense of abundance to where you can actually command more wealth into your life? Your mental signal, are you mentally strong, and do you have the discipline to do what it takes, the law of action, to be able to get what it is that you want? Do you police your thoughts? Do you only have positive thoughts that run through? Do you reframe negative thoughts into positive thoughts that then transfer into beliefs, because you've received those beliefs, which then translate to emotions, which are energy and motion that create the actions, which are the things that you take to get you to where you want to be. Law of action, right? Which is all the mental signal. Now, the physical signal is the body. Have you built the vessel that you need to build to be able to have a strong body, which shows physical competence? These are all the 5 signals that you have to be multidimensional. But it's all about the signal. And if men could focus on the signals that they broadcast to other people, they could understand why they are rejected in society. They could understand why things aren't working the way that they need to work. Your life is not responding the way that you want it to respond because the signal that you're broadcasting is dictating the actual thing that you see, the broadcast that you have that's reflected back to you. In reality is just a mirror. Women are just a mirror. Everything around you is a mirror of your signal. Strengthen the fucking signal. If you found this valuable, again, links will be in the description if you want to tap into understanding more of charisma and communication. You want to master that. I have something for that. I have something for building your personal brand, which also, by the way, is a signal of yourself. My personal brand has grown tremendously because my signal internally is so strong that when I broadcast it to millions of people, that signal breaks through the noise, and that's how I get what I get in terms of views, in terms of subscribers, in terms of people buying my products, people paying me for services, in terms of mentorship, all of that, right? My Jack protocol for the physical signal, because you have to have the physical signal, which shows discipline. And Identity OS, which is a very, very powerful program to reset the signal that you have to start building it to be stronger and stronger and stronger, because a lot of men are operating on weak signals based on the identity that they've crafted unknowingly for themselves up until this point. So that reverse engineers everything and helps you rebuild your identity to be able to broadcast a stronger signal, which will give you stronger results. And last but not least, my one-on-one mentorship. If you're at a point where you're an elite man and you've achieved all of the material success, or you're on the way to doing that, and you need a push to maximize the signal that you broadcast to the world, to be able to be undeniable, to be multidimensional, to achieve all of the other signals. The golden signal is what I like to call it, which is the culmination of all of those 5 signals. I am here to help you. So link will be in the description as well. I love to work with guys who are up there. I only take about 5 to maybe 7 guys per quarter because that's what I can work with. It's very hands-on. You will work with me daily. You will have full access to me on a regular basis, something that most people don't have nowadays because I'm very, very busy. But I make the time for people who have the potential, who can grow. But again, it is a financial investment. The shit's not cheap. It will never be, ever. I started off that way. I gave massive results and I was like, okay, well, this took a lot of mental energy and a lot of emotional energy and physical energy. That has a cost to it. And that's my tuition payment, essentially. But again, I hope all of this was valuable for you. And it kind of sucks, bro. I think my signal was too strong, so my shit just broke on me. I literally was getting up out the chair and whoop. Maybe I'll break this one just to be congruent. But I appreciate you guys, and I hope you found some value in this. I'll catch you on the next video.